All right. Perfect. Okay. All right, let's make the usual tweet here. Tell people I'm live. Oh, let's see. And what am I missing? There we go. Make sure connection's good. Nothing goofy's going on here. Make chat look a little better. Yeah, that's more like it. Okay. Whew. Let's see. Come on, I can't forget that quickly. Okay. Save and then find the link. Make sure everything is up and running. Well, that's good. The stream seems to be working. All right. Hello to anyone tuning in. Just getting things set up here. Hey, Trigger, how's it going? How's it going? Epic Memer, hello. How's it going? Whew. Yeah, I'll let some people file in and we'll get started. Hope everyone's having a good weekend. Talk about a few things first, and then we'll jump into the main event, I guess, of this stream. Doritos and Mountain Dew, how you doing? How you doing? Hope you all enjoyed the races today. We are here after the first two races of the NASCAR season were great. Yep, I agree. Welcome to the show. Brian, thank you. Richie, hello. Yes, I'll definitely talk about the start of the season. For sure. Because there's... Especially, I want to talk about the St. Petersburg truck race, too, because that was fun. That was a ton of fun. So, yeah. I'll give it a couple more minutes and get started here. So, we'll talk about the beginning of the season. I'll talk about St. Pete and the race today. Admittedly, I heard of what happened in the O'Reilly race. I didn't catch much of it because I just had a different obligation to take care of, so I was just not available to watch that. Updates for Racing Infinity, SNO2, and then we'll just do a live breakdown of the Sunday Night Lights 2001 Daytona 500. I thought it was timing, considering that we just had the 25th anniversary of when we lost Dale Earnhardt, and of course coinciding too with the documentary that came out. I thought it was really good. Just an amazing documentary, and I'll get into that. And few teasers as well. Because I showed some renders of some cars. I'll do that again here today as well. I'll probably do that before I jump into the actual race breakdown. So how I'll do the race breakdown is basically just run the race in replay mode and just kind of talk about certain points that happen amongst everything else. So not necessarily me commentating, because I kind of already did that, but just kind of go through it and talk about it. And I have some interesting and cool things to say about how the race ended too, because I felt like it was actually pretty poetic, and I'll get into that when we jump into it. So St. Pete truck race was awesome. Yes, 100%. Seriously, I was especially between Riggs, Rhodes, and Majeski. That was an incredible battle. I thought that Riggs was going to run out and just about did. Hinchcliffe and Colin Braun, how about those guys? Ran great. Dario did a great job. Unfortunately, he didn't really get the result that he deserved, but sometimes that just happens. He had an issue and had to go down pit road late, but man, that was cool to get to see Dario run a truck race, just seeing all these different names, and it was on the Big Fox, and I'm really excited to see what the ratings look like for that. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. Yeah, so I guess I'll talk more about that St. Pete truck race and amongst other things, but yeah, I'm going to say this right now. I know this was more involving with Fox and IndyCar, but run it back. Let's do this again next year, seriously. Or maybe there's another circuit they could do IndyCar with, like Long Beach or something like that, right? Run it back, because I think that was awesome. Between St. Pete and Phoenix, if it goes well, IndyCar NASCAR crossovers could become a bigger thing. Would be good for both series. I agree. Because Pat O'Ward, I think, said something along the lines of how he thinks that, IndyCar is going to be treated like a... He didn't like this whole idea because, IndyCar is not going to be seen as the big thing or whatever. And I'm like, to me, it benefits both sides. It benefits the truck series. It gets a lot of publicity. A lot of people showed out for it, and I'm sure the IndyCar race will be the same way. So, SVG, yeah, I saw that. Hey, I mean, in my honest opinion, if you're the rest of the field, got to figure out how to beat them, right? And I think that should be a fun story to talk about. How do you beat SVG, right? So, Dario's first race since his crash at Reliant Park in 2013. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Was that really? Wow. I mean, 52 years old, and he gets into a truck and was running top 10 most of the race. That's pretty damn good. Not gonna lie. I mean that just, especially seeing Jimmy Johnson working with Dario, hanging out with Tony Kanaan and Scott Dixon. A lot of those guys have appreciation for him. And I loved seeing how Jimmy got involved. Let me see. I'm going to say this right now. SVG going to sweep tomorrow unless Zillage does something wild. Hey, you never know. Zillage could surprise a lot of people. So, all right. So let me get back to St. Pete real quick. So, I want, especially with how Jimmy and Dario work together and the way that Jimmy and other guys from other backgrounds kind of work together, and I really love that because I love watching other drivers do other racing series, and guys like the Mario Andretti's, the AJ Foyts, who the Johnny Rutherfords and all those guys who did all sorts of different racing. Juan Pablo Montoya even, to an extent, Marco Zambros, SVG, and even Jimmy after. Jimmy started out in off-road trucks. He's going to run his, first one since 95 next week? I think they said it's going to be broadcasted on YouTube for free, so that's awesome. I think that's incredible. I wish John Andretti was still here. Me too. I'm sure he'd be proud to see Adam out there racing. It was cool to see an Andretti in the field too. I really love all these different, I love what Jimmy has done too. He's done sports car. He did IndyCar. He had his struggles, but in my opinion, it's kind of like when Dario tried NASCAR for a few years, when Compartier, Max Pappas, and the Open Wheel Invasion, right? I openly encourage that stuff because to me, that makes drivers better, even if they struggle, because you got to try all these different racing series, and I hope maybe someone like a Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton will eventually do more stuff like that after their F1 careers are over. Maybe they can, try the Indy 500 or the Daytona 500. It was great to see Elio run Daytona last year. Stuff like that. So, and that to me is a segue I want to jump into saying, I feel I want to say that the more I think about it, the more that I've processed the start of the season, I'm happy about the new life that I feel like the sport has. I feel like the last couple years have been a little stressful. Did you see Indy qualifying? I didn't, but Dennis Hauger starts P3 on debut. Wow, impressive. I doubt Reddick does a 3P if Gordon couldn't do it. I mean, yeah, Reddick's pretty good on road courses. He won there back in 23. Yeah, because Kurt Busch was calling that race. I remember Kurt being very emotional because he was still supposed to be in that car that year. Yeah, that's right. He was 23 because I remember Reddick won at Indy in 22. Which, by the way, of course, I remember 23 at Indy when IndyCar and NASCAR did the crossover there too. So, Adam Petty would have been very proud. Oh, certainly, absolutely, because that was supposed to be Adam's number. But yeah, I'm really happy with how, there's a new life in the sport. Michael Jordan looks like he's all in and ready to help grow the sport. You're noticing the new kids on the block, like Trackhouse in 2311 looked pretty fast to start the year off. So that's going to be interesting to see how that carries into tomorrow and into the next few weeks as well when we get to Vegas, Phoenix, and all that. The 500 I thought was a fantastic race. Loved the Dale tributes. Loved all the fanfare. The Biffle tribute too. It felt like, and not to mention all the buzz that the sport has gotten and all the publicity. I feel like it's gotten more buzz than it usually does. And I'm glad about that. That makes me happy. And, for me, I've kind of been a little vocal on Twitter, which I know is not the greatest of ideas in this day and age, but there's some cases where I just want to, I don't want to, I feel like it's like I shouldn't sit here and twiddle my thumbs, but let me see here. That makes you think, will Kurt ever make a comeback for Tricon or Ram? Hey, anything's possible. I would love to see Kurt do it. It'll probably be more likely with Tricon. I think he's still working with 2311 and Toyota, I think. So, I'd love to see it, though. Tony Stewart came back, right? He ran the truck race. He ran the truck race at Daytona. I think the truck series has had a wonderful start to the year. And good for the truck series, right? Awesome. Like, seeing Cletus McFarland, seeing Tony Stewart, the excitement about Ram being in the truck series. And then you got this St. Petersburg race that had all these different road racers come in. The Biffle tributes. Yeah, that was really sweet. Yeah, well, I know the O'Reilly race did a Michael Annett tribute. And obviously it was a very rough off-season for sure. I think we've talked about that before. So, as I've said before, I still worry about the culture in the sport. And what I mean by that is, if we're talking about going back to like 2006 when ratings were way up, attendances were way up, absolutely. I want to see 200,000 people pack the Brickyard again someday. Like when I was there in 2005 at age 8, right? When I was 8 years old. And doing stuff like St. Petersburg, the truck race there, doing the Coronado San Diego races in the summer, Mexico City, the Coliseum, Chicago, Street Circuit, stuff like that is good. And I think it's really important to expose the sport to people, right? And at least get people interested. And that's what happened today with the truck race. You got people interested. There was a good crowd. There was something different. They were like, hey, let's go check this out. And there was a good crowd on hand, and I think they saw a really good race, and they saw a lot of big names in that race. Like, yeah, Dario Franchitti, his return made you tear up. Ah, yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it put a smile on my face to see him race after all these years. So I still remember how good he was in IndyCar. Colin Braun, yeah. You know, it's funny. I saw a shop that had a Colin Braun 2008 rookie hat from when he drove for Roush. I was like, how fitting is that? That I saw that and he just ran them. Anyway. Long Beach. Yes. I would love to see all 3 circuits at Long Beach, or at least Cup or something. I've always said, like, hey, if you need a SoCal day, call up IndyCar and figure out how you can run Long Beach, because I think that could be a lot of fun. So, absolutely, yes, I 100% support that idea. But what I mean by with the culture is, I know some people talk about, like, you know, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. You know, I love looking back on, you know, going like, oh my God, I can't believe this was like 20 years ago or something like that. You know, and it's easy to reminisce on those days, and I don't blame anyone for doing so, but, you know, I'm more worried that, you know, some people want NASCAR to go back to being like a southeastern niche sport, right? And I think it's much more than that now. There's nothing wrong, of course, with all that, right? Because that's where the sport was born. That's where it kind of grew up, and obviously there's a lot of history there, and we can always celebrate it. But I also think that it's important for the sport to grow, and I think it's important for, like, you know, it's good that we went to Mexico City, that hopefully we can go to Montreal, that hopefully we'll do these other places and get the sport out there. Let me see here. If you could put NASCAR in 5 new markets, what would they be? That's a good question there. Let me think on that. Will St. Petersburg be in the future SNL series? Never say never. You never know. Obviously, we don't want to go too crazy with things. I love NASCAR's Hell Yeah ad campaign. I do too. And NASCAR's channel working with Chasm on YouTube to do yeah. Yes. Personality exposure? Absolutely. You know, say what you want about Carson Hocevar. There's a reason why a lot of people like him, you know? And, you know, it's important that drivers get themselves out there, and we, you know, these guys can turn into true superstars, right? I think that's, to me, important, you know? I know people talk about, like, Wilkesboro and Rockingham, you know. I'm sure we can make them work, right? And maybe there's a way we can make tradition and innovation come together and make this beautiful thing, right, that can be celebrated and enjoyed by everybody. Because NASCAR is for everyone. Anyone can watch it. I had a coworker recently who just went to the Atlanta race. He said he had a blast. I went, hey man, you went to a really good race, and he's like, oh yeah, I want to go back to another race. So he's already talked to me about wanting to go to Daytona or Talladega, which is awesome. And that's the kind of, it's the little things, you know, to get people intrigued, you know. And I think that's important, because when I look at, because I know Epic Memer, you brought up how Earnhardt flipped Kurt off at Daytona. I got on by Dave Mooney by wanting to bring back racing to the caution. And Churchill Downs truck race. I would love that. Being a little biased, regional bias, yeah. And to answer the 5 markets, well, again, being biased, a Cincinnati street race would be awesome. It would fill in the void that I've been missing from Kentucky for the last several years. But in terms of other markets, I would say Seattle. Get the Pacific Northwest. I think a street race. You know, plus I think Amazon's based out of there. So, you know, you could do, I mean, Prime, I'm sure, would be all over that. 100%. They'd be like, oh, yeah, we want that. You know, Denver. I think, you know, the Rockies region could be really good. You know, I think that's a good market. In terms of other markets, sky's the limit. You know, I know other cities that were mentioned before were like, you know, maybe like Baltimore, maybe Pittsburgh. Heck, I would like to say, if we can't do Cincy, can we do the Burke Lakefront in Cleveland, where Cart used to run? That would be awesome if they could pull that off. If Cleveland's open for that. So, his personality and driving style makes things interesting. Yeah. And you know what? That's fine. I respect that. You know, and he doesn't, you know. And you know what? I mean, I don't blame Hocevar for going for it at Atlanta. I think a lot of guys would have done the same thing, right? So, and I tell you what, man, the moment he starts winning, and I think it's going to come soon, watch out. Because I really think he's a talented young man. Will Homestead be reconfigured in 2003? Yeah, I'd say most likely. Let's see. I have an idea. Trucks back to Heartland Park or I-70, New Orleans, Milwaukee, Road America. Yeah, and I'm like, especially with road courses, you know, you can rotate them in and out, you know, spend a few years going to Road America, and then go to Mid-Ohio, then go to Virginia, Laguna Seca, Road Atlanta, and whatever else there may be, just to kind of go to different places. IndyCar, NASCAR, doubleheader at Burke Lakefront would be awesome, absolutely. NOLA, New Orleans would be awesome too, for sure. But something I wanted to talk about real quick, because I know I'm kind of darting all over the place, which is good. I'm glad we're having this discussion. The Dale Earnhardt documentary. Loved it. Because Epic Memer brought up Earnhardt flipping off Kurt. Of course, Kurt was a part of it, talking about that, which... It's kind of crazy, like, that's your last memory of Dale Earnhardt. It's him flipping you off when Kurt was like a 20-something-year-old rookie, right? It's kind of crazy looking back on all that. And I admit, I didn't finish it, but on the 18th, I watched about the first half of the entire broadcast of the 2001 Daytona 500. And it's crazy seeing not just the commercials from back then, but also just how so much hype was going into it, right? There was so much excitement. And when I watched that documentary, what I loved about it was how real it was and how much it truly affected NASCAR. Obviously, NASCAR was still doing strong the years after. And I think, you know, they kind of... harsh reality, in a way. And how there is no one quite like Dale. You know, he was a larger-than-life figure. And I really think the part of NASCAR that is missing is someone like him. Someone who is a good influence and someone who knew what it was going to take NASCAR to the next level. And if he was still here today, I'm convinced that we would have gotten more road courses a lot sooner. We could have gotten street races a lot sooner. We could have gotten an International Cup date a lot sooner. Because from what I read, when Dale went to Japan and those places, he was a big fan of all that stuff. He had a huge respect for international road racers. Of course, he was running the Rolex 24 literally weeks before he died. And I think they even said he wanted to do more of that. And I love what Ryan McGee of ESPN said in that documentary, because he talked about, you know, everyone likes to say, oh, what would Dale think about the chase? What would he think about the next gen or whatever? And he said, no, what people would be talking about is all those Cup Championship trophies they would have won. Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, all the races they would have won. You know, if Dale was still here, obviously DEI is probably still around, and it's probably one of the top teams in the sport. You know, and I feel like that was something that was taken away from the sport. You know, someone that was definitely needed, and I think we're still missing, and it still affects us to this day. And to me, it's not being a doomer. It's not anything like that. It's just the reality of it. But I will say that I think Dale would have loved NASCAR trying all these new things, because I think even though he was a hard-working blue-collar dude, he cared about what was best for NASCAR, and he wanted to see this sport grow. And I loved every moment of that documentary, especially with, you know, Frankie Muniz, who obviously was starring in Malcolm in the Middle, and how in the 3-minute conversation he had with Dale, right? How Dale told him, your show helped me and my daughter get closer. And that just stings. You know, it just stings when you hear that. Because, you know, at that moment, you don't know what's going to happen. Because he even said, Dale told Frankie as well in that same conversation. I think he said, enjoy the ride, because you never know when it'll end. Yeah, that was pretty eerie, wasn't it? Because, again, everyone thought it was going to be this big race, and we were, 9 seconds away from probably the greatest Daytona 500 ever. And just how the mood changed, with, Mike Helton asking the question, what do you do, what do you do when you have to tell the world that we lost its greatest driver? Yeah, when he was in the Ken Schrader shirt, yeah. Let me read the comments here real quick. I think the Clash of Disney World would be fun. Like street race? That would be unique. I'm not sure Disney would be up for it, but it would be kind of a fun thing to do. Toronto Street Circuit? Certainly. That's another option for trucks, too. They wanted to team up with IndyCar. Paul Newman's Dale Earnhardt documentary was a childhood classic, but I've yet to see the new one. It's really good. I think it's on YouTube. They put the whole thing on YouTube, so definitely give it a look after the stream here. Kurt was definitely, indeed, has the strangest last memory. I wonder what Kyle's last memory was. I'm trying to remember Kyle because he talked about it too. And obviously, he was like 15, 16 years old. He was getting ready to start running in the trucks. Most impactful deaths in racing. Dale Sr., Ayrton Senna, Greg Moore. Yeah, I mean, especially when Dale even, paid tribute to Ayrton Senna after he died in 93, right? I think Dale would have loved guys like SVG, Ed Montoya, and Ambrose, and these guys who were trying to come do NASCAR. I could see an alternate timeline where, maybe SVG's racing for DEI. Or Chastain even. I could see that. If there was a wreck at the back of the field, 2 to go, Dale would still be here. If Dale was still here, in likelihood, Junior wins the championship. The moment it all went south was when DW said, I just hope Dale's okay. I guess he's alright. I wish Cup would go to Portland. Yeah, I hope NASCAR gets back to Portland. That'd be great. But, the other unfortunate reality with if Dale had lived is if Dale hadn't died, who would have? And you don't want to think that. You don't. I don't want to think that. And, Dale's passing made NASCAR wake up and realize, hey, we can't continue doing this. And they made all the changes that they did. A lot of changes I think Dale would have appreciated. What was eerie about the broadcast, by the way, was that they were promoting a documentary about the Petty family, and it was going to cover Adam. Obviously, they were doing the tributes to Adam, which is like, oh my God, this and now what happened at the end of that race. But I really think Dale would encourage the different things that NASCAR is trying. And I think he would want what's best for the sport. And I truly admire that man. And I wish he was still here? 100%. But we will continue to celebrate him 25 years after it happened. We're going to celebrate him 25 years from now. And his legacy will be there forever and ever and ever. So, I guess the biggest thing for me is, did NASCAR lose a major influencer? Yeah. But, in a sense, the sport's still here. We're here loving it. And I know we all want to see it grow and succeed. Because I know Dale would have wanted that. If Dale lived, then Nadu would be gone. And unfortunately, it is possible, I could see Dale honestly going to NASCAR going, hey, we got to do something now. He would have done that, because people listened to Dale. He was a larger-than-life figure, but I wanted to talk about that because I felt like that was just important to talk about. So, I hope you guys don't mind that. Yeah, I love that documentary. I think it's on YouTube, so give it a watch if you can. Um, let's see, what else? Racing Infinity Volume 40. We have decided what it is, but we are taking a bit of time because this is a larger scenario since the big 4-0. This is a big milestone. So, yeah, Dale did say that on the radio. He said, I think, to Andy Pilgrim, I think, was it? Because I think he said something along the lines of, like, Richard, we got to do something about these cars. Someone's going to get killed. And unfortunately, the one that got killed was him. So, but yeah, I know what you're talking about there. NASCAR followed the lead of Indy Racing League and kart mandating the Hans Dale's death would have been prevented. Yeah. But yeah, with Racing Infinity Volume 40, we got a big scenario that I think you guys are going to love. So stay tuned for that. We're getting all the details worked, but we do have something decided for that. Trying to think what else. Again, we've had a great start to the season. Lots of great racing, which is great. What would you say is the biggest what if of SNL? Oh, man. That's a really good question. What if, I guess some that come to mind is 87. What if Jeff Bodine didn't take out Dale Earnhardt? Dale probably would have won a 4th title. Let's see. Yeah, that was the quote. Richard, if they don't do some of these cars, yeah. DEI would have been one of the top Chevy teams. Oh, 100%. So, SNL 2002, I'll talk about that as well. We're making good progress. Stock GT's done. Super Sportsman's done. And we are in the midst of the Super Truck Series season. So, we're making good progress. We're going to keep at it. And we'll let you guys know and update you guys more on how close we are to getting things ready to go for that. So it's been a lot of fun racing. So I think 2002 is gonna be a lot of fun. You guys are gonna love it. So be on the lookout for more updates with that. Atlanta 96, yeah, that's another big what if for sure. Right? So what if Patty Moyes didn't win in Michigan in '89? Yeah, I mean once she got that win, that changed everything, right? It goes back to how one moment can kind of change everything. There's so many different moments that could just change. One little moment out of those moments can change everything, right? I could see Dale becoming a broadcaster, yeah. I think he would have done that on the side, too. Yeah, those are a couple of what-ifs that probably come to mind for that. A what-if inside a what-if, right? So, yeah. Yeah, so I will jump into the race here in a moment, but I want to show you guys some things real quick before we get started. I did this in the last stream. That is way too big of an image. Let me fix that. Again, just showing off the progress that we're doing with paint schemes and everything else. So, there we go. So, yeah, I've just been working with Blender more and just rendering cars like that. What if racing was a full Olympic event in '96? Yeah, that'd be pretty neat. But, yeah, I figured I'd show off a few more of these renders before we jump into the race itself and all that fun stuff. So yeah, again, I thought it would be a really fun idea to do something like that. Yeah, obviously, of course, Jeff Green, our defending champion, looking to defend his title in 2002. I love this. I made this Budweiser scheme. It's simple, but it works. Man, yeah, it's definitely a nice scheme. I like it. So It's gonna be RCR is gonna be fun to watch coming up to see how they do with their lineup. So let's see. So that's Jeff Green, and I will show another full paint scheme, and then just a little snippet of another paint scheme that I will hopefully doesn't reveal too much. Jeff Green as a Cup champion sounds so weird. Yeah, that's the product of an alternate universe, right? So his career has played out so much differently than in real life. How many SNLs do you think will come out in 2026? My plan is to get all the way through 2004 still. That is definitely my plan. And here's the other one, of course, Bill Elliott. So, and then I'll show one more, and then we'll get to the main event. Man. So, RCR should be watched closely. Yeah, I mean, you know. And plus, I think RCR is just in a lot better hands than they were in real life. Yeah, obviously, Dale Jarrett. Probably definitely one of the biggest busts in this timeline for sure. But yeah. There's Bill Elliott's number 9 Coors Light Dodge. But yeah, basically I wanted to show some things to show it is being worked on and all that stuff, so. Alright, let me see how this one's going to look, because this one's just going to be a little teaser, a little snippet of a paint scheme. 1985 champ, yep. What in the world? Okay. Well, I guess I'll just live with it. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Bill Elliott won that stock car feature at Sebring. I did see that. At age 70, man, that's crazy. How about awesome, Bill? That's funny. Like, honestly, that's crazy. Give me a second here. Or I could just do that. Yep. So, again, just kind of showing off what progress is being made. We've already made a ton of paint schemes and stuff like that, so. Hope you guys like the schemes. And, yeah, we'll get with the 2001 Daytona 500 here in just a moment. And basically, just kind of dissecting the race and, you know, not necessarily commentary, but just looking back on it. Because, again, I just thought the timing was pretty appropriate, right? Yeah, it was a vintage stock car race that Bill won. Yeah. Still, man, that's crazy. That's amazing. Shout out to Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. Did NASCAR also have the Muppets cars in 02? I believe you're correct. I believe you're correct. So. Oh boy. Well, one of these days I'll get better at this stuff, right? Holy lordy. Shout out to Jets Racing Designs for these graphics and these thumbnails, by the way. He does a tremendous job. And of course, you'll find out who's in what in every series when 2002 comes out and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned for all that. Yeah, close enough. Okay. Let me make sure the sound is good. Okay, hang tight, folks. I want to make sure I actually have sound for this. Let me check my speakers. Let's try that now. Why am I not getting any sound? It was working earlier. Well, let's try this. I'm gonna exit out. Hopefully nothing crashes out of this. Oop, that's a good sign. Hey, that's a lot better. Okay. Sometimes exiting out of the game and opening it back up works like a charm. Alright. Excellent. Alright. Alright, y'all have waited long enough. Let's dive into it. Alright, so like I said, we'll go through all of it. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And yeah. So obviously I'll show you guys the starting lineup as well, real quick. So Tony Stewart on the pole. Jeff Gordon starts second. Your dual winners, Jeff Green, Ricky Rudd. And you got Sterling Marlin, Mark Martin, Alan Kowicki, Shauna Robinson, a pair of former Daytona 500 winners. Eddie Bierschwell and Elliott, a couple more former Daytona 500 winners. Wally Dallenbach, John Nemechek, Chad Little, Kyle Petty, Storm and Norm Benning, Terry Labonte, Kenny Brack, Patty Moyes, Rodney Orr in the 73, 94 of Casey Elliott, Brian Raffner, former truck champion, Kelly Earnhardt, Carl Long, and Greg Sachs in this row. A couple of smaller teams there. Robbie Gordon, Ken Schrader, Tim Steele, Kenny Wallace, Dale Earnhardt, Blaze Alexander, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Rob Moroso, Bubba Nissen, Matt Kenseth, Joe Nemechek, Rusty Wallace, Kelly Williams, Jerry Nadeau, Paige Jones, Tommy Kendall, Ernie Irvin, and Davey Allison. Let's go back like this. All right. This was certainly a moment I looked forward to, especially when doing 2001. You know, how this race was going to play out. Because this was going to be like the big day, you know, all this hype with Dodge coming back and the Fox NBC deal and everything else. So I was really excited to see how this race was going to play out. So as you see, Terry Bradshaw with the green flag in hand, Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon lead the field of the green flag in the 43rd Daytona 500 is underway. Yeah, doing the Daytona 500 is always really fun, especially with, who we figure out, who are all the go or go homers and everything else with this race. And, I could honestly talk about how I kind of set some stuff up there. I've always had like a system where I list all the drivers in a list on random list generator, all the odd numbers, whoever like was 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 on the list would end up on the first duel, and then the second duel went to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, so on and so forth. And then the pole sitter for both those dual races would start on the front row. And then, of course, we have our system on how we determine who gets into the 500 and all that, and who gets provisionals. And then I use the save game editor, and with the save game editor, you will have to do a qualifying lap in order to get it to work and edit the starting lineup. And then I just edit it that way, set it up, and away we go. Fun Coast 500. Awesome. Fun stuff. Three laps in, Sterling Marlin leading the way. Wally Dallenbach, and then our 1999 Daytona 500 winner, Chad Little, right behind them. And overall, I thought, the race played out pretty good. Nothing too crazy or anything like that. Are you going to introduce top 35 in points? We will cross that bridge when we get there for sure. UPS and DeWalter both Pontiacs. Yeah. Yeah, it is funny that we got a DeWalt 17 car after all, even if it's a different team and car manufacturer. So, of course, you see Shauna Robinson, the previous Daytona 500 winner from 2000, two-time winner. What is the highest entry list you've ever had for a cup race? How many drivers attempted to qualify? That is a good question. I'll have to go back and look. Probably has to be a Daytona 500. Oh yeah, the first Brickyard. Probably that, and certainly a 500 for sure. I'm not entirely sure on the number. That's something I'd probably have to go back and check on. So, yeah, I want to say probably the 94. Yeah, Brickyard. I think you need SNL Rusty coaching the Bengals. Anyway. Kenny Brack. Trying to get his first cup win, of course. And I admit, Brain's a little fried. I've been up since like 3:30. Excuse me, 3:30 this morning. So I did have a power nap at one point, but so brain's a little fried. I apologize for that, but yeah, first Brickyard. 96 entries. Holy moly. Jeff Brennan, DeWalt 17. Nice. Kenny Brack leading the Daytona 500. 8 laps in. Tony Stewart in second. Mark Martin third. Eddie Bishrell fourth. Brian Reffner fifth. Sometimes I get the... oh yeah, the Summer Showdown instead of a lot of entries, yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to running how the 2002 Daytona 500 goes and who gets a shot at glory. Obviously, like, one of the big stories, even in this 500, was, could Rusty finally win this race? Because Rusty has pretty much won everything but the 500, you know? And you can't help but wonder, it's like, can Rusty finally, after so many years of trying and frustration, can he finally get it, you know? Total career win sheet. Oh, wow. Excuse me. That's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely something we've been needing to work on. I love it when people do that kind of stuff. Seriously, that's awesome. Yeah, of course, Rusty's still chasing title number 6, and if he does that, he could potentially go for, you know, the record tire championship number 7, right? Hope to see a huge entry list. Yeah, obviously I haven't finalized who's all going to run the 500. We're still getting through the truck season, and we got to get through IROC and Busch, but I'm definitely looking forward to running the 500. It's definitely one of my... Obviously, I just love seeing how all the races play out and seeing, like, what kind of moments get created amongst all that. So, there's definitely a lot of excitement, and honestly, just a lot of excitement for the coming seasons in this timeline, right? So, that's what I'm looking forward to. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to keep the train going, like I said, so make it all worth it. It's Kelly Williams there in the 82. Trio of Fords going 3 wide for a moment there. Bierschwell, Steele, and Irvin. Yeah, Kelly Williams has definitely been a heck of a story for sure. Let's see. Maybe I could do a little on board with somebody. You know what? Let's go on board with Dale. Why not? Where is he? Oh, there he is. Let's ride along with Dale Sr. here. Right there with his son, Dale Jr. Shauna, we can do that. On board with Shauna Robinson. Just kind of doing some onboards. Thought that could be a little fun. Kelly Earnhardt working with her dad. The 1997 winner of the Daytona 500. Let's see. Read the comments here in a second. Let's see. Catch up with the comments. Yeah, Fork in the Road. Obviously, hope everything's good with him. Great series. Really enjoyed it. So, you know, just hope everything's all right on his end and created a fantastic series, a fantastic timeline, and I loved all his work. So, yeah, what the plans he had, yeah. Does SNL have a Shauna Robinson effect with women's sports? I would think because of her and Patty that there is some sort of effect, especially with Shauna. I mean, she took what Patty did and increased it by 20, essentially, right? The first female Cup champion, first female to win Indy, first female to win the 500. So, certainly stuff to think about there, for sure. That reminds me. That's right. I want to go back really quick, because obviously there was that lap 16 incident Jeff Gordon got involved in. Because I was trying to remember what lap it was on, so I figured I'd look back, because it happened in turns 3 and 4. Of course, Gordon was already way in the back. Chad Little, there in the 17, gets into Terry Labonte, slides right back up into Jeff Gordon. Wrong place, wrong time for the one car. Man. What surprised me the most was that the caution didn't come out. Was it just dumb luck in the duels? Yeah. Just, right place, right time. And Chad Little was always getting squeezed right here, and again, it truly amazed me that did not bring out the caution. You know? Yeah, I don't know what it is with Norm Benning making the 500, but would you ever look at contracts at future SNL, like JCS, for example? That's something that I will say we've discussed. For sure. Excuse me. So you see Marlon up here with Jeff Green and Matt Kenseth up here. Yeah, and the other thing too is like so much has changed compared to real life at this point that, you know, everything's just kind of gone in a different direction, if that makes sense. It's kind of like one domino effect that leads after another. Ken Schrader trying to make a cup return in that 0-1 car. Oh. You see Dale Earnhardt working his way up the field with his daughter Kelly. Schrader at Ganassi, it was just how he's been working with Dodge, and you know, he basically kind of just worked as like a veteran presence to help build his team. Both he and Terry Labonte for sure. If I remember correctly, I think this is the moment that Dale Earnhardt took the lead in the 2001 Daytona 500. Teammate Jeff Green following suit, Bubba Nissen in the 59. You see Rusty up there in the mix. I know I kind of put a little emphasis on that moment in the video when Dale took the lead, just kind of a way to tribute him and pay tribute to him and honor him and stuff like that. For Terry Labonte, it was just kind of one of those things where he was ready to move on and do something different. And again, just Ganassi bringing in veteran presence to help build the team for the future. You know, obviously it was a shaky year one for them. Give me a second here. So Earnhardt leads the way there. Nissen in second. Less than 50 laps remain. But, let's see. You know, Schrader was 35th in points, while Labonte was 28th. So, struggling year one, but definitely going to look to improve for year two. And then, of course, that car. You see Nissen and Dale kind of drive away from the field. Looking back here, I almost thought for a moment a wreck was going to happen when this happened. I was like, oh gosh. Of course, you see Casey Elliott up there. But, so at this point, yeah, Dale and Nissen kind of drove away from the field thanks to the lap car Chad Little. But obviously, just them being two cars, the entire field kind of continues to chase them back down. Excuse me. You see Kyle Petty, Shauna Robinson, pair of Sapco Pontiacs back. Actually, all three Sapco Pontiacs back behind him in this moment. Trying to catch back up to the top two. Yeah, ARCA's still around. It's just doing its own thing, basically, yeah. Would Bubba Nissen keep his team if he retired or expand it? Anything can happen, you know. Some stuff that we've obviously been thinking about, some different ideas, but obviously we won't really know when the time comes and what Nissen will do, because obviously his career changed the most out of anyone else in this timeline, you know, to a point where we don't really have much background information on him, right? So, definitely something interesting to think about there. "27 laps complete. Paige Jones and the rest of the crew catching up to the field." Almost think Jones and Nissen might have made some contact there. Yeah, Kimmel is still the king of ARCA here. That part doesn't change despite him running part-time in Super Sportsman. So yeah, Kimmel still yeah, still dominates the ARCA series. How did you come across Bubba Nissen in the first place? Well, as you see, the father and daughter battling for the lead here. You know, I was just finding the car set for the 82, or just getting the car set together for the inaugural Busch Series season and getting some names that were notable, getting some cars together, and next thing I know, he started winning these races, and I was like, huh, just keep an eye on him. And then he got really good, and it's just like, wow. I don't know much about this guy, but I guess he's going to become a prominent name here in NASCAR. And that's what ended up happening. So, obviously, it was just one of those things where I had to look him up and learn about him and stuff like that. Casey Elliott diving down to the inside. Of course, Casey Elliott went on to have kind of a breakout year in 2001, scoring his first and second career wins. Winning at Road America and, of course, the Southern 500. What are some things you thought would happen in SNL that didn't pan out? That is a good question. Things that you thought would happen that didn't pan out. Man. I'm trying to think what comes off the top of my head, honestly. I'm sure there are some things. I'm just honestly trying to think. Obviously, yeah, I'd take a look at a bunch of silly season rumors. Just for, like, references or, like, oh, we could do this with that driver. But, again, so much has changed in this timeline that really anything can happen. You see Kelly Earnhardt leading, Moroso second, Irvin third, Dale Jr., Tony Stewart up in the mix. And they're already catching the lapped car of Chad Little up ahead. That's always kind of the sucky thing sometimes about super speedway racing in NR is when this happens and you got a super slow lapped car and suddenly it just kind of throws a wrench into things and you're like, oh no, certain drivers turning out his bus. Yeah, obviously, then in that case, Dale Jarrett and JGR and how that didn't work out. And, we're at a point in time when JGR already won a bunch of stuff and won a championship where they still have yet to win a cup race in this timeline, which is nuts. They've been doing great in the lower circuits, but not necessarily the Cup Series, which is certainly interesting. Do you think SNL teams will open up extra cars to rerun veterans, like what Ram is doing with 25 right now? Well, anything's possible, There's currently no plans of anything like that, but down the road, obviously the possibilities are there. Ernie Irvin leading the way. Yeah. They have yet to win a single cup race in this timeline. They've been great in Super Sportsman. He's had some success in there in other circuits, but here, for whatever reason, they just cannot seem to get into victory lane. You should bring Tommy Gale back. Dale Jr. trying to hold on to second, but under pressure from Tommy Kendall. Hit the halfway point of this 2001 Daytona 500. These Daytona races, man, they're always quite something. You know, you don't really know who's gonna win until it's the last lap, which is like real life, but still, it's just, especially in cases where the lead changes so much, and it's like, holy crap. I think this is when some leaders began to pit, yeah. It's cool how certain things come full circle in different ways. Junior running DEI 8, but with Oreo, Mark Martin driving the 16. Yeah, exactly. You see Dale Jr. and Tim Steele coming down pit road. Kelly Earnhardt. Brian Refner. Might as well show a pit stop going on. It's crazy to think how far we've come with Sunday Night Lights and how far into the timeline we've gotten. Now that we have guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Tony Stewart running in Cup. Just crazy to think about, you know. The more I look at the 11, the more I see Denny Hamlin's FedEx Ground paint scheme from like 2006. No, I see where you're coming from, yeah. The MB&A Ford of Ernie Irvin. There's Rob Moroso in the 20. Yeah, and there was no other wrecks or cautions outside of that Jeff Gordon-Chad Little incident. Which is crazy to think. Had KP run part-time in a Hendrick 46 in the late 90s in my timeline. Recently ran Cup for everyone with anyone full-time in 2002. Interesting. Irvin Moroso battling side by side, almost at 30 laps to go. I think at this point was when things started to shape up towards the finish, I believe. Yeah, because at this point the 20 and the 11 were battling side by side. As you see Moroso clear the way. PJ Jones winning the Coke 600 in Sonoma. That's crazy. That is crazy. There we go. Who's had more bad luck, Jeff Gordon or Rob Moroso? That's a good question. Excuse me. So, hope you're all enjoying this, by the way. If you guys like this kind of stuff, maybe we can do this with other SNL races. We can look back on certain kinds of races and whatever if I'm able to do them. So, but yeah. In terms of the bad luck, though, Jeff Gordon and Rob Moroso, I feel like Jeff Gordon a little bit more. Like, again, he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't won as much, but he's still been up there contending, so yeah. I'd lean a little more towards Jeff Gordon, even though Moroso has had some big moments that have ended in heartbreak for him, kind of thing. So you got this front pack of Moroso, Kendall, Steele, excuse me, Kelly Earnhardt, Dale Jr., Robbie Gordon, John Nemechek, Ernie Irvan. We always have those kind of anxiety moments where it's like a back marker team or, smaller teams out in front. We're like, oh boy, what if they win, kind of thing. Because really, as long as you're in the field, I think you have a shot to win, right? So, see Kendall taking the lead. You got Steele battling him. Kendall hangs on to lead that lap. What will happen first? Moroso winning the title or Rusty winning the 500? Oh, man. I don't know. I feel like with Daytona, it's out of luck and RNG sometimes. So I'm going to say Moroso winning a title. Especially that, Moroso has a longer career left to go than Rusty. But, yeah. Yeah. I would say Moroso winning the title. I think 2002 was Rusty's year. The 2-car winning in the 2002 Daytona 500 month 2 of the year. Yeah, I mean, it would be a big moment, The 5-time champion Rusty Wallace finally getting that elusive Daytona 500 win would be a heck of a story for sure. So, it could happen. It could certainly happen. So, of course, we'll just have to wait and see. Richard Petty winning at Atlanta. Oh yeah, I believe that was his final Cup start too. Yeah, I think it was because I think that was the season finale. Oh goodness. Excuse me. Reached 25 to go, coming back to 24 to go. Knew he would have had to race full time in '98. Or, you know, just kind of go out on top right off into the sunset of winter, right? So, oh, lap car. I think this was when Junior got shafted here. I'm trying to remember. Oh, excuse me, man. Like I said, I've been up since 3:30 this morning, so I apologize. Handing the lead over to Rob Moroso with Tim Steele in second, Kelly Earnhardt third, Robbie Gordon fourth. I feel like Kelly Earnhardt's always been really good at Daytona. She's always running up front. She's always kind of up there, you know. Chad Little, the roadblocker of Daytona. Which is crazy because, you know, he is a previous winner of the Daytona 500. As well as that 14 car. Nissan in the distance. Ah, yes. Because now at this point we're approaching about 20 laps to go. You got Moroso, Kelly Earnhardt, Robbie Gordon, Tim Steele, John Nemechek, Ernie Irvin, Tommy Kendall, Kyle Petty, Bubba Nissen, Jeff Green, Dale Earnhardt, Patty Moyes, Joe Nemechek. And then Rodney Orr. Because things were still pretty spread out at this point, but they ended up getting a little more bunched back up together. At this moment, Nissen's basically fighting to stay in the top 10 as we are approaching 20 laps to go, currently at 21 to go. A man who had not won since 1997 in the Winston Cup. Three wide for third. Gordon, Steele, and John Nemechek. I think Rodney Orr could probably go for a little more longer. Yep, Nissen almost won Dover in 2000. Yep. What if Dale did the double? That'd be cool. We haven't really discussed that a whole lot, I would say, but possibly something we can go back and touch up on for sure. On like who did the double and stuff like that. Under 20 to go. And you see John Nemechek. Everybody pretty much ganging up on Moroso here. Project 91 should probably do more races. Yeah, hopefully there's something will come of that here pretty soon. You know, hopefully something will be announced soon. You know, whether it's on the road courses or like the 600 or something like that. John Nemechek, the man who won a Busch Series title before getting his first career win in that series. And a man still chasing his first Winston Cup victory. Now Rob Moroso back in charge. Kelly Earnhardt works on chasing him down. Will we ever get a racing Infinity set in the 80s or 70s or 80s? I want to see the 1979 500 reimagined. Yeah, if we get a good idea for it, I think anything's possible. You know, just obviously making sure we have the right info and everything else. I think it's certainly doable. Here's Kelly Earnhardt going for the lead. Tommy Kendall and Tim Steele right behind her. 14 laps remain. On this, the 43rd running of the Daytona 500. There's Tommy Kendall leading the way as more cars have pretty much joined this front pack to contend for the win. Jeff Green, at this point, looking for a way around Tim Steele. Not able to get it, though. Steele leading the way. Of course, so much more racing left to go. Even if 12 or 13 laps don't sound like a lot for Daytona, certainly is. Oh, man. Had to get up and stretch for a moment there. Oh, it's a lot better. If Robbie won for Eel River, that would be SNL's David Gillen at Kentucky. Yeah. I remember sitting there watching it going, oh my goodness, could he potentially win this somehow? As we see an RCR 1-2 of Green and Earnhardt. And of course, poor old Chad Little here as the field catches up to him. Look out! I'm trying to remember, did they kind of split the field on him, or does the outside just kind of get pushed back here? Yeah, the outside pretty much had some issues here and caused Jeff Green to drive away a little bit. Dale in second. There's Robbie Gordon in third for Eel River Racing. Hitting the 11 laps to go point in the race. Have you ever thought about crew chiefs in this timeline as a thought, or not really? I mean, a little bit, but again, there's just... That's like a big rabbit hole to dive down and stuff like that. Jeff Green, who of course the man who went on to win the 500, not the 500, but the championship. Wrong one. You got Earnhardt, his teammate, Robbie Gordon, Bubba Nissen looking to snap a winless streak. All three RCR guys pretty much running up here. Patty Moyes, Tommy Kendall, John Nemechek. What a group. What a group. Again, I definitely want to talk about the finish of the race and how kind of symbolic and poetic it was in a way. So, I'll definitely get to that. Under 10 to go. Green, Earnhardt, Nissen, Kendall, Moyes. See Bubba Nissen to the inside of Earnhardt now. What other makes join NASCAR and SNL besides Dodge? And Toyotas and Super Sportsmen. Yeah. You know, again, just kind of a play-by-ear thing. Cross that bridge when we get there and figure some things out. Obviously, you know, be on the lookout for Toyota in the coming years and all that good stuff. So... Well, you know, Robbie Gordon's kind of been doing what he can, driving for small teams and stuff like that. Random nickname for Patty Moyes, the Thrill of Jacksonville. That's a good one. I like that. But, yeah, I mean, you know, going through these final laps when I ran this race, I was just wanting to have as good of a race as possible and as good of a finish as possible, and looking back on it, I think we got that. But I'll talk about that when we get to the end of the race here. Ryan Newman is in the series. He was driving part-time trucks for Bill Davis in 2001. Robbie Gordon flowing down the Eel River. 7 to go. Rob Moroso leading here. Pack of about 11 cars at this point. Ernie Irvan peeking to the inside of Kendall. I mean, Newman just practically ended up with somebody else instead of Penske. Still a 14, but yeah. Five to go here. Moroso, Irvin, Steele, Gordon, Kendall. How much would you deal with a 500 if nothing much happened? Well, I end up redoing races depending on if things get really out of hand. If, like, there's a completely unrealistic wreck that should have been like a 3-car incident that turns into, like, half the field, right? Or just something that goes crazy and out of hand and get to a point where it's like, okay, we got to try this again, Weird things have happened. It's a 23-year-old video game, right? So, is what it is. They approach the lapped car of Ricky Rudd. Rudd trying to stay out of the way, but Robbie Gordon, of course, ended up getting shafted here. Moroso, Steele, Earnhardt, Nemechek. 3 to go. What do you think of my ideas? I mean, again, anything can happen. We're so far out from the future and everything else. It's just really hard to determine what will happen. I can't begin to tell you what's going to happen in 2005, right? So, Bubba Nissen back there in 5th. Of course, Rob Moroso at this point trying to win a 500 here. Reached 2 laps ago now. 2 laps ago. Nissen starting to work his way up here in 3rd. Getting by the 51 of John Nemechek. At that point, I was keeping an eye on that 59 going, uh-oh. And here we go. Coming to the white flag, the finish of the Sunday Night Lights 2001 Daytona 500. February 18th, 2001, in another timeline. White flag. Rob Moroso trying to hang on. Down the backstretch, it's Moroso, Nissen, Moyes, Green, Nemechek. And right here, the winning moment. A 115 race long winless streak. About moments away from ending. As Moroso gets passed by Nissen. 1996 all over again. Jeff Green tries to make a move on the inside, out of time, and of course Bubba Nissen wins his 2nd Daytona 500, his first Cup win since 1997. So, here's what I wanted to talk about with this finish. Alright? We'll do that. Yeah, how poetic that it was, Nissen and Moroso, and kind of like that's one of the reasons I'll talk about. It's like how that rivalry kind of reignited for that moment, how Nissen outsmarted Moroso here. But, when I had this idea, and back on the 18th, I had to kind of watch this replay and watch how this race ended, and in a way, with how this 2001 Daytona 500 ended, it was rather symbolic. Especially when you look at this pack of cars here. So, here's the finish, right? Let me move that. Okay. You got Bubba Nissen, who became like the poster child of Sunday Night Lights. Had his whole career change more than anyone else, A guy who ended up becoming a successful Busch Series champion, later Winston Cup racer, eventual Daytona 500 winner in 1992. Then, of course, he just won it here for 2001. And, of course, the 96 Winston Cup champion. And right here, he snaps, in a thriller of a finish, snaps a 115 race winless streak. Then you got Jeff Green, whose career has also changed quite a bit. Becomes Dale's teammate in the Winston Cup and would become the eventual champion. And then you got his teammate, Moroso, who came oh so close to winning the Great American Race. Of course, one of the what-if drivers, a guy who, was just kind of getting started, right? And, also one of Dale's teammates, for sure. Of course, John Nemechek, again, another what-if driver. A guy who never got a chance to get to Cup in real life. So here he is driving for Hendrick and was in contention to win this race. Patty Moyes, of course, female driver that began a female revolution in NASCAR and became a superstar amongst everything else. And while she's not won a championship or a Daytona 500, she has had quite the career. Then you got Kelly Earnhardt, Dale's daughter. Never got to any National Series in real life, but thanks to the cultural shift that came from Patty Moyes and Shauna Robinson, this allowed for Kelly Earnhardt to be competitive in a better climate, where she was able to climb her way through the ranks, become a Daytona 500 winner, and once again was in contention to win this race. You got Tim Steele, who, yes, technically a what-if driver with what could have been with him in real life. He was getting ready to have the opportunity of a lifetime until that test crash happened. Well, here he is, a Busch Series champion, now Winston Cup driver, driving for Roush, and had a solid finish. And, of course, ninth, the man himself, Dale Earnhardt. In this timeline, he crossed the finish line. He took the checkered flag. He's with his family, his friends, his team, and life goes on. Pretty self-explanatory, right? And then Ernie Irvan, who became a champion in this timeline in 1999. A fantastic driver who in real life never really got a chance to finish his racing career on his own terms. But here he is in 2001, still racing, still contending, still competitive, right in this pack. All these drivers all have a story that changed for them. And there's just so many stories in this little pack in general. And perhaps in Sunday Night Lights, we got the Daytona 500 that could have been. I know Dale didn't win, or one of his drivers didn't win, but it was still, to me, a big moment. With 17 million people watching going, wow, what an amazing race that was. How about that Bubba Nissen guy? I hope he can have a resurging year. Or going like, hey man, that's such a heartbreak for Moroso. How's he gonna bounce back? Dale had such a great run. Can he go on a quest for another championship this late into his career? And in a way, with Sunday Night Lights, all these drivers can be celebrated, and they're gonna race out their whole careers without any worry, without any concern, without tragedy or anything like that. Perhaps, maybe, even though there weren't a lot of incidents or crazy things, maybe this was one of the best 500s in SNL so far. Just considering how poetic and symbolic this was. 1999 was the perfect year for Ernie to win the championship, considering that he retired that year in real life. Yeah, and sometimes I feel like this game has a mind of its own. Or more so, it just knows what it's doing. I can't explain it, but there are just times where I sit there and go, this game knows what it's doing. maybe it just knows what I'm doing, right? Maybe it just knows what I'm doing. The stories write itself. I don't control these races. I just let the AI do its work. And what's this? Alex, the fact that it's a blue and yellow car in first, a Budweiser car in second, and a black RCR car in third is so surreal. Oh, shit. I didn't even think about that. Oh, my God. Wow. How did I not realize that? That's insane. Wow. Pardon my language. I'm sure YouTube won't like that, but wow. That's crazy. Holy crap. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I think we got the 500 that could have been, and should have been. So, Bubba Nissen gets the resurgence of a lifetime. He's back in victory lane at the Great American Race. Jeff Green just inches away from beating him, would eventually become the champion. Rob Moroso still chasing glory. Dale Earnhardt took the checkered flag, and got to see his two teammates contend for the win there, and all that stuff. So I wanted to talk about the end of that race because, again, I look back on it and I went, oh my God, this is poetic in a way. A timeline that, rewrote racing history, that gave every driver an opportunity to thrive in the best way they can. And I think I got a good result out of it, and I think we got a really good Daytona 500 that I think a lot of people can look back on and say this was the beginning of something even bigger for NASCAR moving forward. So I think that's special in a way. So it put a smile on my face, Of course, Nissen went on to win Watkins Glen as well. Despite that, he finished it's crazy because Nissen actually went on to finish 18th in points, which is nuts, right? But I mean, man, the Cup Series is just so competitive, right? Moroso went on to finish third in the standings. Of course, Moyes was runner-up. Dale Earnhardt finishing fifth in the standings. Of course, Jeff Green was your eventual champion. But, yeah. I wanted to talk about that as I kind of start to wrap this stream up. I'm still blown away by the symbolism of that 1, 2, 3 concerning what happened in real life. Yeah, and the 1, 2, 3 that we all wish we would have gotten, right? So, man, again, sometimes the story just writes itself. This game just knows what it's doing. 31 Bud car looks so good. Yeah, I love how that paint scheme came out for sure. Just a lot of great paint schemes that, that Jet has made, that Rose Jam has made. They've all done a phenomenal job. If it weren't for those guys and Ferris, I don't think this would have gotten as far as it has. So, yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this. This is a window into what would have happened if Dale was able to hold off Marlin. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to look back on it. So, and I think we had a pretty fun 2001 season, and looking forward to what 2002 brings us in this timeline. So, yeah, just wanted to talk about that before I wrap the stream up. If there's anything else you guys wanted to discuss or talk about, or anything like that, I'm certainly open to it. I'm about 5 minutes away from the 2-hour mark, so I'll probably call it a day there. But let me see here. So yeah, and of course Rusty Wallace had a mechanical problem earlier on in the race. I forgot to point that out. So that's why he ended up finishing 41st. But Just love NR 2003 sim racing. Oh, certainly. Especially just being able to play out the races without having to race in them. When you do stuff like this, is just really fun. It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's all the races, man, that we have ran, and the many more that's to come. So, like I said, for 2002, imagine if Sterling Marlin won the 2002 Daytona 500 and the 22. The symbolism of that would be nuts. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, March or April is the goal. Like I said, I'm not going to give a definitive date until we get closer to things being completed. But obviously, Stock GT is done, Super Sportsman is done, and we're into the Truck Series season now, and get that all wrapped up here, and go from there. So we're making good progress. Stay tuned for that, and of course, again, stay tuned for Racing Infinity Volume 40. And again, we have an idea put in place. Again, it's just taking a little bit longer because this is a pretty big milestone with this being the 40th one. So let's see here. Is it already goofy with winners? I will say there's been a lot of great racing. I will not give much away, but there's been a lot of fantastic racing. There's already been some cinema for sure, and I'm looking forward to showing you guys that for sure. So, oh man, I am whooped. I admit I am tired, but wanted to do this stream. Wanted to talk about the beginning of the season and how great it's been. Talk about the Dale Earnhardt documentary, and just growing the sport and stuff like that. So I appreciate you guys hearing me out for that. I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. Seriously, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate all the support, as always. It's a small channel, but the amount of support, especially that SNL and Racing Infinity have gotten, is just incredible. And, I'm just incredibly blessed for that. So thank you. Thank you all so much. I'll give it a couple more minutes, but you guys wanted to bring up anything else, let me know. You can check back early in the stream with some of the teasers that I showed for Sunday Night Lights as well. Yeah, 2002 will be here before you know it. So, and of course, same with Racing Infinity Volume 40. And also enjoy the Cup race tomorrow from COTA. I hope the Cup Series continues to go there for many years to come. It's a great circuit. I'd like to get down there one of these days. That'd be great. Yeah, man, that St. Petersburg truck race was amazing. So that was a lot of fun to watch. I hope they run that back. Seriously. Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, if you guys like the live race breakdown stuff, I'll do more of them. And it's something fun and different to do because I've always been doing like the mock races and stuff. Of course, I'll still do the mock races, but to do stuff like this, to kind of break up and do something a little different from time to time is pretty fun. So, what would you say a dream Racing Infinity you would personally want to do? Oh man, there's quite a few of them. Maybe one of these days I could try like a Piston Cup car set or something like that. That'd be fun. What if in 2002 we get an Earnhardt 1, 2, 3 with Senior, Junior, and Kelly in the 500? Oh my God, that would be insane if that actually happened. That would certainly make for a great story, obviously, to have it run in the family like that. So, well, with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Appreciate the support. Hope you guys had some fun. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, I'm going to relax, get some rest, because I know I certainly need it, and go from there. And as always, stay tuned for all the updates and everything else. Have a wonderful night. Enjoy COTA tomorrow and the upcoming races, and stay tuned for when the next stream will be. Stay tuned for Racing Infinity Volume 40, and of course, Sunday Night Lights 2002. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm Gray Speed, and I will catch you all next time. See you guys.